if I can help change the sport, it's by changing the system.
Equality begins with one woman.
Billie Jean King.
Equality is 50 years in the making. Equality is being ahead of your time.
It's not just about the money, it's about the message.
Listening with your heart and putting your money where your mouth is.
So in 1973, the US Open was the first major to offer equal prize money.
Equality is contagious. Equality is including others in the fight. Equality is hitting, screaming, and winning like a boss. Equality is when your seat at the table is a throne, feeling comfortable in your own skin, a force of nature. Equality is knowing 50 years
You need to dream and build.
is only the beginning. Thank you, Billie Jean, for 50 years of progress and paving the way for 50 more.
But I said to myself, if I can help change the sport, it's by changing the system.
Please welcome the chairman of the board and president of the USTA, Brian Hainline.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the U.S. Open Champions of Equality inaugural event. The U.S. Open and the USTA believe that sport is a public good, that sport can and should positively influence society. We are celebrating 50 years. It was 50 years ago that the U.S. Open, following the lead and courage of Billie Jean King, became the first major sporting event in the world to offer equal prize money to men and women, thereby setting an example. We have continued to use our platform to fight for equality of access in sport and in society, and even recently being the first Grand Slam tennis tournament to offer wheelchair competition to adults and to our juniors, stating boldly that our disabled athletes in our wheelchairs and our able-bodied athletes should be competing on the same stage together. We're proud of what we have done. We are proud of where we are, but we know we need much to do. And that is one of the purposes of tonight's discussion with three esteemed panelists. Billie Jean King, our indefatigable fighter for what is right. Venus Williams, who in many ways is a modern-day voice of Billie Jean King, who stared down the leadership of Roland Garros and Wimbledon and said, you too should follow the lead and you should be paying equal prize money to men and women, and who also has inspired countless young girls of color that they have the right to fight for everything that they dream for. And we also have Telva McGruder, the first Chief Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Officer for General Motors, setting the stage for what should be taking place in the corporate world, while also inspiring countless numbers of individuals that they should be aspiring for academic excellence, especially in science, engineering, and math, that they should be able to aspire for academic excellence and have equal access to do so. Our moderator is Christiane Amanpour, who is an award-winning journalist, and she has taught us that it is not simply objectivity that we should be fighting for, because objectivity does not mean neutrality. That if we are neutral, that we may not be on the right side of the battle for what is right. And she has also taught us that it is so essential to give equality of access to all voices, especially to the voice of the oppressed. So Christiane, thank you for being our moderator, and thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you all for having me here this evening. I have been in England and I came by plane today and landed at 12 o'clock at JFK. But just to say that for the last week or so, I've been glued to this year's US Open on the television. And I have to say that the graphic, the art that this was created for this historic moment to celebrate 50 years of equal pay is so arresting and so beautiful that it has really put the context perhaps for a wonderful, wonderful set of matches that I've been watching this year so far, and has really focused me anyway on so much that has been achieved. And so it is incredibly moving and humbling for me to be asked to do this, and particularly first I'm going to bring on all our fantastic leaders, and the first one of course is Billie Jean King. So proud to welcome her, the 13-time champion of this tournament, but whose greatest achievements, perhaps, I don't know whether you'll agree, we'll ask you, perhaps the greatest achievements were off the court. I don't know, but Billie Jean King, please come to the stage. And joining us next, she owns 73 singles, doubles, and mixed doubles titles, is a 4-time Olympic gold medalist, and was the player, leader, and the closer to secure that equal prize money that Brian talked about at both Wimbledon and Roland Garros. In 2002, she became the first African-American woman to ascend the world #1 in the Open era. From Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, please welcome 2-time US Open champion, Venus Williams. And lastly,
I'll tell you later.
Lastly, Telva McGruder.
What are you going to tell
So
him?
she also has been a game changer and a leader, of course, as General Motors' first ever Chief Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Officer. During her time in this position, she developed and executed strategies to ensure progress towards GM's aspiration to become the most inclusive company in the world, while shepherding global impact in diversity. And she fostered partnerships and initiatives that promoted equity inside and outside of the company. She is an accomplished engineer. She's recently taken on a new challenge as the Executive Director of Global Body Manufacturing Engineering as the company transitions to an all-electric future. She's leading strategy, planning, and launch of body and paint systems for the global vehicle portfolio while transforming the manufacturing environment. That is a lot. But along with her professional accomplishments, Telva is dedicated to teaching and leading others inside and outside General Motors. She's the vice chair of the Oakland University School of Health Sciences Advisory Board and also serves on the board of directors for the Girl Scouts of the USA and the University of Michigan School for Environment and Sustainability. I mean, Telva, in 2022, you can start walking now. She was recognized.
Say you didn't sleep.
I haven't finished. She was recognized in 2022 as one of Create and Cultivate's 100 Outstanding and Ambitious Women, and we have welcomed you right. So let's sit down and get this show on the road, because it is always wonderful to go back in history and get all their points of view of some of these unbelievable milestones that we've seen. But also this conversation is going to be about how do you take it forward, what happens in the next 50 years, or 5 or 10,
pressure.
or whatever it is. Pressure's a privilege.
Oh, boy. Why did I ever say it? No, I'm kidding.
You see?
I love it.
Right.
I do like
First to you, Mrs. Billie Jean King. What goes through, okay, when you see the posters and when you see all the incredible graphics and the neon and the president and the first lady and everybody, and you've done it, and every time I look at the television, it says 50 years, 50 years, 50 years, and it's all you.
It's not really on me at all.
No, actually it is. How did you do it? How did you, in fact, How did you, 50 years ago, when this was not a walk in the park, you didn't get it given to you, there was no diversity, equity, inclusion, and all the rest of it, how did you negotiate and leverage your status to inform the US Open that they needed to do this?
So you want the real story?
Yes. You wrote it in your book, and it's so cool.
Okay, 1972. We're in our second year of women's professional tennis. We'd started the tour in 71, even though the original 9 had signed a $1 contract with Gladys Selman in 1970. But fast forward, 1971, we had our first tour. And in 1972, I won the US Open, and I won $10,000. And Nastasi won $25,000. I'm not happy. We have so much to do, though. You got to understand, we're trying to just have our tour to survive and all this. So anyway, 1972, at the press conference, at the media conference, I'm sitting there internally thinking, I'm having a hard time with this. And I finally said to them, we're not coming back next year unless we get equal prize money. And internally I'm saying, what have I done? I have not talked to the women yet. I haven't talked to anybody yet. So and then I realized my job is to go get a sponsor, because I figured if I could get a sponsor and show that we'd make up the difference, that the tournament would be hard put. Most of the players don't know anything about business, so they always want more money, they want more of this, but my former husband and I owned tournaments, so I understood the other side of the coin, the sponsorships, media, everything that goes with it. So I asked different sponsors that I had relationships with. Relationships are everything. They really are. I went to them pleading, would all of you together make up the difference? Would one of you, two of you? And Bristol Myers came up to me and said, we want to do the whole thing. You could have pushed me over with a feather. So I went to Billie Talbert, the tournament director. Stacy Allister's now our tournament director. It's the same position. And excellent, boss. She's my boss. This for 2 weeks. So anyway, Billie didn't know what to do. He looked at me and said, what? And I said, we have the money next year. You don't have to go out and get any sponsorship. He got very quiet. He goes, I'll get back to you. And so fast forward to July 73, he announced that we're going to have equal prize money. And that's the reason we have it.
It's really remarkable. And the courage to leverage your position back then is pretty remarkable.
We were all pretty good. The top players, we were ready to, we didn't care. We didn't care. Suspend us, do whatever you need to do. We are going to do this.
Which actually comes to another point, which we'll discuss in a minute, how much you did on court, but how much you did off court, and how you were willing to potentially sacrifice titles and etc. in order to get the civil rights and the human rights and the women's rights piece over the edge.
I made up my mind as a youngster that was probably going to be the case if I wanted things off the court to happen. And I thought that was much more important than titles on the court. So I could have won a lot more titles probably. I missed 11 years of the Australian, didn't play the French a lot of years. But they should have asterisks in tennis. We don't have them, like baseball has them every other sentence. But they really should have them because they don't explain it, and nobody knows what the open air is. I asked ITF kids. I had about 250 kids in England. I go, do you know what open tennis means? Do you know what it means? What does it mean? It means pro tennis. We got paid. That's what it means. But nobody knows what it means. So, they go, oh, in the open era when they're giving facts on TV, they mean since 1968. Okay? That's how you can remember.
So in the open era, Venus Williams
I can love to give
cracked and shattered a lot of glass ceilings. So Venus, I want to ask you a question which is kind of big, but it leads to how you followed what Billie did in the US Open. But I mean, first of all, you were an African-American woman. There weren't that many playing, clearly. You and Serena absolutely tipped the balance there. And you then leveraged your status to insist with Wimbledon and Roland Garros that they do the same. Mm-hmm. How many years later was that? And did you talk about it? Was it your initiative? How did it come about?
Yeah, I think my circumstances were a lot different from Billie. Like what they faced was so much different. I had a chance to play, because of Billie and everyone who worked with her. So for me, it was I didn't have to think about as a kid, like, oh, I will rather choose to have equality over titles. I think the situation was definitely less extreme, but in a lot of ways it was also a lot more silent in that sense too. So there were still mountains to climb and places to go, but in some ways I think there was some acceptance, like a couple of the majors, that it wasn't really there. And yeah, I think it was a different road, but also something that needed to be overcome.
Exactly, but what then led to you confronting, or however you did it, to insist that Wimbledon, because they were very late, Wimbledon and Roland Garros.
Wasn't that
What year was it?
Was that 2005 or something?
2005,
It's
around that
late.
time, yeah. So fast forward from 1973 to
Yeah.
2005. We're still fighting, thankfully not here, so thank you US Open and USTA, but that fight was still happening in other places, and I think there's a part of you that, it's sad to say, that gets so used to not having it that I just assumed we're going to be fighting for another 20 years, you know what I mean? And ultimately it took 2 years, and when it happened, it was almost surreal. And it was almost like, but I'm not ready to stop fighting. Like, let's fight a little more. I'm not ready. But so when that did happen, it was such a great moment. But for me, it was just, if there's an elephant in the room, you say something. And I am a fairly quiet person, but when I talk, I do. So, yeah.
Did you
that part.
talk to the committee at Wimbledon to try to get them to figure it out?
Yeah, Billie's urging me along.
I know, but I think they'd be really interested.
It is
Well, yeah,
really interesting.
Billie's such a great storyteller, and I'm like, if Billie said something that happened in a movie, you would like walk away feeling like you watched it. And I'm the person said, well, there was this guy and this girl, a lot of stuff happened, and they got together. I'm just like in and out. But so I was playing this tournament in Wimbledon, and here I go again. Just kidding. And I was arriving to the finals, and every year they have this meeting with the Grand Slam committee. So it's not just Wimbledon, but it's every single Grand Slam, and it's very proper. And you go into this room, and it's a boardroom, and it's a little bit boring, to be honest. But I didn't say that. It's not on the record. It's off the record, everybody. But you go in, they serve tea, and it's very English, and you know how English people are very more buttoned up than this loud Americans. And there's a lot of formalities, and we ask for equal prize money. Then a few weeks later, or months, or whatever the time frame was, thank God I don't remember anymore because it's not happening, but they would just say no. So it was year after year after year since the open era that this was going on. So at that point I went into this room, and I asked everyone to close their eyes, and I said, now that your eyes are closed, you don't know if that person next to you is a man or a woman, but everyone's heart beats the same way. And would you want your daughter or your sister or your mother or your wife or a loved one that was a woman to be paid less? And then I left. I bounced. I had to go. I didn't stay for the whole meeting. So lots of people think that was impactful. It was just the truth. And a lot of times you can't beat the truth. So when you stand up for what's right, and that's what my mom was all about. She is about that. And I learned that from her. She's really just an amazing woman. And because of her, I think that's why I spoke out, because my mom said, there's something wrong, you stand up for it. And that's really where it came from.
That's amazing. So, the theme obviously also is do the right thing, right? So what you've done is do the right thing and urged others to do the right thing. So Telva, your GM did the right thing back 50 years ago when they actually, this is slightly different, but they took the bet on the battle of the sexes, right?
Yeah, did.
Yeah.
Actually, in 1973, when I played Bobby Riggs, there was a Cadillac brand right there.
Right. So 50 years later, I guess it's obvious that Billie was going to win. No, I'm kidding. But I'm just joking.
Why didn't you just tell me that?
Yep.
But what made you take a bet? What made the company take a bet? I assume you thought, I don't know, did the company think Billie would win, that Bobby would win? What made you take a bet on this thing?
Yeah, from a corporate perspective, if you think about the history of General Motors has been committed to equality and diversity for over 50 years. So our journey started in earnest, I'll say, in the late 60s, where amongst protests and amongst leaders inside and outside of the company taking strong stances, we realized that as a company that we could do more. We could do more. In 1972, we started the first minority dealer development program, right? That was over 50 years ago. And that program still exists today as we continue to grow the number of minority dealers. And many years later, akin to Venus's story, we started the first women's retail network, right, in 2001. And the point is, in the late 60s, early 70s, we were at the point as a company where we were trying to figure out what can we do? What is under our control? Companies aren't meant to do everything, but there are a lot of things we can do. And so I wasn't there, but I imagine that because of that environment with the board of directors we had at the time and the expectations they had set at that time, that when this opportunity came, GM said, this is something we absolutely want to stand behind. And the brand Cadillac, which is a brand that has always been very powerful and very bold and continues to be today, wanted to be the brand that stood with the battle of the sexes. And we can talk a lot about how that's continued, but that boldness and that audacity to say, yes, we want to be there, we carry that really proudly. And it's one of the reasons we resonate in so many different communities.
I'm interested in what you say that, private sector, companies, corporations like yours have to be in the forefront. It's not just individuals, lobbying and doing everything they can. And you also play a huge role in society in trying to move this diversity, inclusion, DEI ball along. Mm-hmm. You said we can talk about what more do you, when you think about it now, what do you think for the next few years, the next half a century?
Yeah, when we think about...
Do you think it's still that commitment amongst companies today, not just GM, but other companies?
That's right.
To do the right thing. Do you think they still have that commitment?
I think that companies are always going to be committed to a few things. First of all, companies, the stronger companies, the companies that are really committed are going to be committed to their team members, right, all the time. How are we going to provide the environment for those team members so that they can thrive, so that they can contribute, with equity inside of the company? Now, what's really great about that is that when companies really empower their team members will make it clear, right? What is it that we expect of a place that we work for? And that's really important. So when team members are truly empowered, they can help the leaders in the company understand expectations and help the leaders with some difficult decisions, because companies are navigating a lot of things. They're navigating politics, they're navigating their business, they're trying to do return on investment for public companies, and for private companies, they're obviously wanting to be successful. And so, it's great to have that resonance of team members, but then also companies have the ability, as leaders of those companies, to look at the landscape and say, how do we want to impact the world, right? How do we want to impact the communities that we're in? What footprint do we want to leave behind? And that's the most important thing that companies have to do all the time. They have to be conscious of that. And if it only stands in the place of profit, if it only stands in the place of revenue, it's never going to be enough. Mm-hmm. And so I think the most important thing that companies really must do is continue to reach for what is that next thing that we can do that's going to be a positive impact on society. The more companies can think about that, the more they're going to be paying attention to equity, the more they're going to be paying attention to inclusion and creating products and environments where people are going to be able to thrive, right? So it's hard work, frankly.
Venus, when you think of what you did off the court, and you think about trying to move it forward, do you have thoughts about how, you could sort of expand the kind of, change you were able to get at Wimbledon and Roland Garros?
That's a big conversation in tennis. It's a little complicated. Tennis is a little bit fractioned. I would have a ton of ideas, but I think it'd take a few years to get it through. No longer on the player council. Yeah. But I think my vision has kind of shifted more towards not even just tennis, but towards women in general. And
in sport or in general?
In general, because women are facing challenges all over the world. And women in the United States are being paid 82 to 83 cents on the dollar on average as men. But any men in this audience right now, you guys don't wake up and think about that. I mean, you're not brushing your teeth like, wow, women are paid 82 cents a dollar. This is really heating me up.
That's an ad.
Yeah, it is an ad. It is a great ad.
It might be an ad. So we're not thinking about this enough. We're not talking about it enough. When we have these conversations, then we start to be able to make change, just as Billie was saying. You have to engage first. So while tennis has been a great place to start, it's not the finish for me. And so having initiatives, working at grassroots levels, raising awareness. It's interesting how just talking about something and starting the dialogue, it makes people think. Most of us are just trying to live our best life right now. And we're not necessarily thinking about some of the issues that have been here for so long that in some ways you unconsciously accept. So the blanket is so much wider for me.
Telva, at the corporation, is it equal pay for equal play?
So at General Motors,
yes,
start with General Motors.
That's what I mean.
I'm not going to speak for all companies, but
no,
so certainly at General Motors, we are focused on pay equality.
Yeah.
And we've been recognized by Equileap. We were #1 globally in pay equality a few years ago, and we continue that path. We're recognized again this year for #1 in pay equality in the automotive sector. Right? It's a constant effort to make sure that you're paying people equally for the work that they're doing, particularly in a corporation, because there is so much variety of work that's going on, and you have people with different levels of experience, and there's a lot of nuance there. However, there are ways to do it. We measure on a yearly basis, and we make corrections every year. When we find that things are going in a way that we say, oh, wait a minute, right? This is trending out of line, then we make corrections. And then we're constantly improving our processes so that we can do that better.
Is it up to the American corporations or whatever to step in and fill this and prevent, these great tours from having to go trawling in some of these waters?
Yeah, it's a great question, but I'm going to start by saying it depends.
Right.
Right? You can't, it's not a blanket, yes, corporations must fix this.
Yeah.
Corporations have the ability to make decisions, just like USTA and other organizations, of where they are and are not going to invest. They have the opportunity to make decisions on what they're going to leverage, right? We do this on a global basis, and all companies do, whether they're local or global companies, they decide, where am I going to invest and where am I not going to invest? And ideally, what corporations are going to do is align those decisions to their values. So it's extremely important that a corporation has defined their values. What do they value? And that they speak that out loud. It's similar to what Venus was saying. When people are more aware of things and they're having active conversations about it, and more people become aware of their position, then it's difficult to not have that position. So corporations need to stay strong to their values and align when they're making decisions with those values. And frankly, have the difficult decisions that need to be made to do that. And that is the role of corporations. Corporations aren't going to be everywhere. So every corporation isn't operating in Saudi Arabia, for example, right? But where they are, they have to make sure. And as they consider expansion, what are the key things that we need to keep in mind from a diversity, equity, inclusion perspective? How can we make sure that we're going to be able to say we're supporting human rights?
I started, and I'm just stating the obvious. You and Serena created a tsunami of interest and opportunity for African Americans as well as anybody else, but certainly. The job is never done, but are you pleased with how many African Americans are in tennis? Could there be more? Should there be more? What do you see as that path right now in terms of race equality?
Well, I think you don't know that you have a chance to do something until you know. And there weren't as many African Americans playing, and quite frankly, we're choosing different sports. So by the choice of my dad and my mom to get us to play tennis, then we've had this opportunity to show other people, like, yeah, you can play too. This opportunity is available to you. And that's what it was all about, once you kind of show the way. And there are a lot of African Americans, both boys and girls, playing at the grassroots level, at the college level. I mean, obviously there's only so many people who are going to make it to the pros. 100 places here at the Open. Yeah. You know, not many out of all the billions of people that would love to play pro, but it's wonderful to see that women are making their lives better through sport. And that transcends color. I was never taught to see color. That was not what I was taught in my home. But I realized that the world does. Yeah. And you know, you don't have to be defined by anything if you don't, especially these days, you can be a cardboard box, apparently. So
you
if
can
that's
be a what?
what you want to be,
cardboard box?
you can be whatever you want. And that's the message of this, is that you don't have to have any boundaries. And that's what I love seeing, is that young women now are just taking this sport by storm, and there's only even further up.
In our last couple of minutes, let me ask you, Telva, finally, here you're all, you know, game changers, and, you know, you've created milestones in all your individual ways, huge ones. Do you think that the what is the youngest one now? Gen Z? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we actually have Alpha now.
Gen
okay, Alpha Z, but Z, let's talk about Z a little bit.
Alpha.
Do you think the younger women, let's say in your corporation, people who you mentor, have that sense of still needing to fight the good fight, or are they resting on the laurels of these wonderful people and you all who've preceded them and fought the fight?
Yeah, no. So, yeah, young people, particularly young women, they understand, I think, more than they ever have, that they need to do work to position themselves.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, to position themselves to succeed. And they have a higher expectation of those that they're working with, right? Regardless of gender. They have a higher expectation. And they are absolutely working to be seen, known, and understood, to make an impact, right? I'm really proud, you know, when I think about our Cadillac brand, you know, the Escalade IQ that we just launched, the chief engineer for that vehicle is a woman.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Iconic.
Yeah, right? It is absolutely iconic. You know, she is a woman. The Escalades that we've launched in the past, we've had whole design teams, not whole design teams, but many key members of the design team that were women.
That's great.
Right? Interior design, exterior, right? So they are absolutely pushing, but they're not sitting on their laurels. There's no there's not a, give it to me. No. We want to work hard for everything that we're earning, and that applies to the youngest women in the workforce. It also applies to women that are not even in the workforce yet, right? So Gen Z is just hitting the workforce, right? Gen Alpha is high school age right now. They're starting to get it, but the key is exposure. Yeah. The key is that those women are exposed to different ideas and different experiences, as Venus was talking about. You know, a lot of times the reason that you don't see women in places and the reason you don't see minorities in places is because they're not in an environment where they can be exposed to those things. But once they are exposed, certainly right now they understand that, they'll work hard, but they have high expectations.
We are out of time, but I want to give Billie the last word.
No, I don't want the last word. I want
50 years.
I just want to thank you because I feel like
last word.
Okay, I think the thing I would like to thank Stacey, Alice, and her team, Brian, and everyone for what they've done this year to bring this to the forefront. About 50 years of equal prize money is absolutely huge, but it sends a much stronger message that we must all continue to fight for equality. And I ask companies, do you spend as much on women's sports as you do men's sports? And a lot of people get very quiet by that way. We only get 5% of the media. And I know we're just talking sports, but we're really talking about all women and all in every phase, area of life. But I want to talk about the artist of the poster.
Yes,
because she's from Brazil. And when I saw that, I thought that is so stunning, just the design and whoever thought this up. And so I called her to thank her, and Camila Pinera is her name, and she's been here. I met her and her husband, and I just think it's stunning. And do you notice I don't have a nose?
Yeah, so good. I love it.
I was signing posters for Stacy's team, the team. She had a whole team of women. Most of them are women, almost all of them. And I said, "What are you guys doing? What are you noticing in life and all that and all this?" And I go, "Did you notice I don't have a nose?"
Yeah.
And not one of them knew. They went,
Yeah.
"Oh, we didn't know." But I wanted to, Camille. I just think it's more important to talk about the artist who had the brains to think this up and the creativity in her mind. So anyway, I thought it was stunning when I first saw it, but more importantly, I did want to thank her, and she is here, so everybody knows.
Good.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Lou, sorry.
Billie, Venus, Telva, thank you so much. We're going to walk off the stage. I'm going to hand back to the president. Brian.
Oh,
You guys are staying?
I don't know. You stay.
I think they're catching my, they're so long.
There is a presentation, but am I supposed to leave or stay?
Yeah.
Stay? Well, I've got all these cards. I mean, things are happening so fast. Look at all my cheat sheets. Okay. I could, but
Well-
I don't think I need the first one.
Well, thanks so much. So
have to stay here.
we come to the. Am I okay like this?
You look great.
Oh.
Let's have fun.
It's now a pleasure to acknowledge the U.S. Open Billie Jean King Champions of Equality awardees. We have 16 section leaders. So the USTA is our sections. It's at the sectional level where we promote and develop tennis. But why? To inspire healthy people and communities everywhere. And if we're going to inspire healthy people and communities, we also have to aspire and fight for equality of access. It's also my privilege to present the Lifetime Achievement Award. So the U.S. Open Billie Jean King Champions of Equality Lifetime Achievement Award to Billie Jean King.
Thank you.
Billie Jean, it's my privilege to call you a mentor, a colleague, a friend. You inspire me. You inspire everyone to continue fighting the fight for what is right.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you.
I know you don't have many trophies or anything, but it's one more. And thank you for all you do, Billie Jean.
Thank you. Can I see it for a minute? Just want to show it to everybody. Sorry, I'm blind to you. No, that's beautiful. It's more important what it represents. And thank you to Cadillac. They're on here. Iconic. I love that. You know, I love the music in their ads, and then it gets to the end, and it always has iconic last. I just love it. Anyway, I watched a lot of TV and commercials. No, I do. The thing I want to thank, Lou, I forgot to thank you, sure. He's the boss. Anyway, thank you, Brian, Stacy, Lou, everyone. You know, when I get an award like this, it's very much any award I get, really. I think about why am I standing here? And I'm standing here because of others. Everyone matters. Every one of us is an influencer. But in Long Beach, California, I happen to be born in Long Beach, California, where the park and recs are amazing. A fifth grader, Susan Williams, asked me, "Do you want to play tennis?" And I said, "What's tennis?" Had not a clue about anything. Our softball coach told me there were free instruction and coaching at Houghton Park where I played softball. Susan and I played on the softball team as well. Oh, it's free? Oh, now we're talking. So the first time I go out to get instruction, at the end of that day, I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be the #1 tennis player in the world. And I got in the car to tell my mom, Mommy, I want to be the #1. She goes, that's fine, you have homework, don't worry. And she kept my brother and me very grounded. My younger brother, a few years later, told my parents he wanted to be a Major League Baseball player, and they just went, not you too. So they didn't care, and they never asked us if we won. So all you parents here, you might want to think about that. Because Randy and I grew up loving pressure. We like it. We welcome it. So I don't know if that'll help. But without the Long Beach tennis patrons, without the Long Beach Century Club, who helped me with entry fees and helped me go to my first trip to Middletown, Ohio for the 15 and under nationals. My mom and I had to take a train. We couldn't afford a plane. My dad was a firefighter, who I was very proud of him. And the first time I went to Wimbledon, it took a lot of money. And those are the people who help, the people of Long Beach. So every time I get anything, Presidential Medal of Freedom, that's all I think about, is to tell them thank you. And I had great parents, which is really helpful. And now I get to do some really fun things. Venus, I wore green because that's one of your favorite colors. And what does she show up with? No green. She shows up because last year I wore pink for Serena.
Yeah.
You remember I was wearing pink all the time? That was why. It's Serena's favorite color. But I asked Venus, what's your favorite color? I wrote her. She says, I like green, gray, yellow. Do I have it right?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. So I wore green today. I was going to wear purple, which
It's a new
means
color,
equality,
though,
social
Billie.
justice.
Lavender.
But I did this for you. So anyway, because she's our next recipient of this new award, the Billie Jean. What is it? The Billie U.S. No, I got to get U.S. Open in it. U.S. Open Billie Jean King Champion of Equality Award. Did I get it right? It's not on here. Yeah. So anyway. I just think you're fantastic. I love you. I met you when you were 7 years old in Long Beach. I mean, and you even lived there when you were young. So we're really connected. Long Beach and Compton are next door to each other. Means a lot to us and a lot to us. But I want to thank you for your voice of equality. I want to thank you for everything you do now in helping others. You've always had a keen sense of that. When you were on Fed Cup teams, and I think you came up with Althea Gibson, the first black to ever play, which was, yes, because I always ask the players everything. And so you've done so much for us. And you continue to play, which I love. I don't care what anybody else says. I know you love it. You're out there giving it everything you've got. And I just love that about her. But it spills over into everything. And how about the time I had to come and get you at the Olympics because she was designing something. She was drawing and sewing also for the next match. So you're so versatile in all you do, and you care so much. And I love you for that, and welcome. And I'm so happy you're the first recipient of the U.S. Open Billie Jean King Champion of Equality Award. I got it right? What? No.
Thanks, Billie. Thank
Do
you.
I have something to give her?
I don't know. They're going to help
Venus. The moment you stepped on the court, you changed the game forever. In '97, you kicked open the door. In 2000 and 2001, you slammed it shut. Tennis has never witnessed your blend of power and elegance, speed and finesse. We're talking style to turn heads on Fifth Avenue, a smile to light up Broadway. And you know New Yorkers dig a little attitude now and then. You showed us the meaning of possible, the meaning of courage. You showed us how to be a big sister and how to stand up for what's right. You blazed a trail for young women in the game of tennis and in the game of life. In so many ways, you were first. So we want to be the first to say thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Well done. That last picture is the first day we met. She was 7 years old at the Parker Rec I talked to you about. Anyway, go ahead.
So cool.
Go for it.
Thank you so much. I first have to thank the USTA and Stacy, who've just supported me so much over these last few years, especially when I've had some injuries that have really kind of been unlucky, but you've supported me every step of the way. It really means a lot to me because it hasn't been easy. Also, I have to thank Billie, too, for giving me this opportunity to have this good job. I love my job. I love what I do. I'll always love it. I'll always be a tennis player, even when I'm not. And it's just fantastic what you did. And I think when you were in the middle of it, I don't even think you realized how tough it was because you're just in the middle and you just do what you have to do. And thank you for having that courage to get everyone in the right direction. And now the rest of us ladies, all we have to do is play. And that's a beautiful thing when you just get to play. Sometimes you mess that up. So you had to play and get a sponsor and do everything in between, you know, right before your match. And I can't imagine what that was like, but you did it. You did it well, and you remained a champion throughout it and a role model to this day. And my first time I met Billie, I was like 7 or 8, and it was at World Team Tennis. There was a clinic. My dad was shipping us around everywhere, you know.
Your dad and mom.
If you were in
were
LA,
there.
you saw us. So we were everywhere in that red bus, and I just remember I wanted to impress Billie, and I thought I did. I don't know, but I wasn't afraid of the stage. I wanted to play, and I wanted to show her how good I was.
You did.
And it's so crazy that we met at that age, and then we also like a few years later, we played at Family Circle Cup. I was a little bit older.
Yeah, we did. With Rosie Casals, and I played with your sister. You played with Rosie.
Yes.
And Rosie's 5'2 1/4, so you can imagine what that team looked like.
I was already taller. I was like 10 or 11.
Yeah,
I was taller than her already. I just never stopped growing. And it was just such great exposure to have the opportunity to be around a champion as yourself. And I'm always quoting you. And then I actually have to give credit because I said something the other day and someone was like, yeah, it's hot in Florida. I said, they're from New York. I said, I bet you're wearing pants. And they were like, yeah. I said, you don't wear that much clothes in Florida. And they're like, yeah, but you know, I can. And I was like, champions adjust. And they were like, in the world's silliest conversation, Billie comes up and they're like, I love that. And I was like, I can't take credit for it. It's Billie Jean King. So I'm quoting you all the time. You know, you got to pay the price. Champions adjust. You know, pressure is a privilege. And we'd be playing. I played Fed Cup with her, and you just be practicing, and she'd be in the background, and Billie goes, I love this game. I'm like, what is wrong with this woman? But she has such enthusiasm for life, and Billie is, you know, a firecracker. So she has a lust for life and just this love of life that, and for equality and for what's right that you rarely see. And I'm just so honored to be a part of this. This is so fantastic.
Number one, babe. That's the first one.
The first one. Yeah. About that life. And before I wrap, also, I want to thank the USTA for being first. 50 years.
Yeah.
50 years, baby.
Big.
50 wonderful years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great.
Well, thank you, Venus. Thank you, Billie Jean. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Christiane, Telva. And we're going to just continue the journey forward. And we're truly inspired and will continue to be inspired. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Sorry I screwed that up. Do you want a photo? Do you want a photo of the two of us or something? I keep blinding everybody with these.
Right? This is.
Hey, Moon Man.
Like you got fingerprints on it already.